What's up, weirdos? All right, we have another special treat for you guys today. Moonwell had a spaces today, and they were discussing the future of consumer DeFi with Luke Youngblood of Moonwell and Momo. You're not going to want to miss this one, guys. Now, listen, if you're interested in decentralized finance plays or DeFi like we are, you're going to want to get over to the Patreon, guys. It is one of our favorite narratives. We believe it's going to be one of the biggest narratives in terms of potential ROI for this altcoin season that is coming. Make no mistake about it. So, if you want to get in early on these kinds of projects, if you want all the latest and greatest on projects like Moonwell, Clearpool, XCN, Zbec, XPR, and so many others, guys, get over to the Patreon. Get in early on these projects. We also have a swing trade tier that you might want to get into as well. If you want to make passive income to beef up your bags, check out our swing trade tier. The link is in the description, guys. And without further ado, let's get into this spaces. Hope you enjoy. I will be back at the end to discuss. Enjoy.
Yep. I kind of hit Kenzen. No.
You can hear me?
A little bit. You might have to get a little closer.
How about this?
A little bit closer.
Oh, I
See into it.
How about now?
No. Yeah, I think Kenzen's gonna have to hop on his own.
Okay.
Well, I'm. Hello. So I'm on Joey's account. I didn't join as a second person.
He's got his USB mic mic'd up though. The light is green, right?
Yeah, later.
Cool. Well, we're just waiting on Luke. We've got Kenzen here. We've got Sohail here. And
Joey, do you want to give?
hey,
Great to be here, guys. See Momo. Good morning. How's everyone doing?
good Momo. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening for anyone who those that are joining us from other time zones. Doing great. How are you, Luke?
Doing great, guys. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Just
Yeah.
give me a second. I need to tell some people that I'm a little bit busy right now. Hold on.
Okay. All good. And Manav, did we want to record? We are recording. Did we want to make this a video or just keep it audio?
We after the space, what I'll do is record it from my phone, using the recording, and it'll show who's speaking. So yeah, I'll be able to do that post.
Sounds good. Cool. Well,
Cool.
once
I'm
Luke-
ready too. Sorry, I
go.
just wanted to tell some people that were over here that like I'm going to be locked in the room and they need to be quiet for like an hour. But you know how it is working remote.
Yeah. All good. Yeah, let's kick things off. Luke, thank you so much for being the special guest today. Good Momo. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. We're super excited to break down a few key topics today and then give a special kind of shout out and announcement at the end of the space today. So I'll kick things off. I'm Joey, CEO and co-founder of Nook. I'm alongside Kenzen and Sohail here, our Chief Product Officer and our Chief Technical Officer. We are all ex-Coinbase and used to work with Luke. And super excited to have Luke on the space today because Luke has basically been not only like a mentor, advisor, investor in Nook, but also like a pioneer of the space and kind of a godfather to Nook. So there would not be any Nook without Luke, and we want to dive deeper into that. Luke, do you want to give a little bit of a intro about yourself and share more?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's so great. It's such an honor to build alongside you. I remember meeting you months ago at Coinbase HQ, or sort of the SF HQ, if you will, at Salesforce Tower, and just being really inspired because I think we both overlapped at Coinbase, but it was during COVID years ago. And you were at Coinbase for like over 6 years, even longer than I. But I've been building decentralized systems that store hundreds of billions of dollars in the staking space since even a year before I joined Coinbase in 2019. I was building for Tesla's foundation. And I think that, first of all, I have a lot of respect for builders like you and the entire team, Kenzen and Sohail, because we've all been building at Coinbase for like over 6 years. And what that means, like 6 or 7 years, is that we were building during crypto winter during 2018, 2019. Everyone was asking us at the time, I don't know if you remember, but they were all asking us, is crypto dead? And the reason why we're at Coinbase is because we believed in the mission of increasing economic freedom in the world. And we weren't there to get rich. We were like, maybe our stock options will be worth something someday. But a lot of people that are in the space, nothing wrong with getting rich, but a lot of people that are in the space now just want to get rich quick. But I think those of us that have been here for the long term, like you and the team, we just really appreciate that, like, nothing great or nothing of value is built in a day. And I really appreciate the thoughtful approach you bring to next savings. Like, you're kind of building what I kind of imagined Moonwell to be is like the everything app to help people earn money in a really easy way, like almost like BlockFi for Moonwell. And I love that you guys are building that. So I'm excited to be here. And you guys are one of my favorite teams in the space, just to be honest, because I was honored. I couldn't even believe you wanted to build on top of Moonwell, because you've been building, I think, DeFi yield apps at Coinbase for like six years in the mobile app space. Like, I was on the staking side, but you're building DeFi yield in retail. I'm sure you want to talk about that too.
Yeah. So all four of us used to work at Coinbase. We are there. I think Sohail was probably the earliest to join in 2017. Sohail, when did you join? And do you want to share more about that project?
Yeah, just before the 27 bull run. I was like one of 3 iOS engineers at the time.
Wow, you're even older OG than we are. I'm honored, Sohail. I didn't know you were there that long. I didn't even join until 2019.
Yeah, it was 2017 bull run was just madness. I have so many crazy stories. It was palpable. Like, the feelings in the room, you'd walk in, you could hear people just like sighing, and divas are stressful, but it was fun.
Isn't every bull market like that? I think we've been through a few of them. They're combined on this team.
yeah, they really are. They are. I don't know. 2017 hit different for me personally. It was just like I think just the team was so small, and the amount of eyes on us was so big, and so any mistake we'd make was just so huge. But it was fun.
For you guys, so I was not in crypto in 2017. I think Kenzie and I were both at Uber working on cars. For you guys in 2017, what was it like when the summer of DeFi yield came along, and then what was it kind of like your first experiences with earning with DeFi?
Do you want me to go first? Because I wasn't at Coinbase in 2017, but I was actually in crypto in 2017.
Yeah. I want to hear from you, Luke, and then
Sure.
Sohail.
So first of all, I was an early Bitcoiner, and I was an Ethereum miner in like 2016. And I remember, I mean, I wasn't like professional. I was just like, I was mining a few Bitcoin on my gaming PC in the early 2010s, and I just kind of held them in my wallet. Now, my brother he was actually a full-time software engineer, and he was in the Ethereum ICO. I wasn't that fortunate. So he was full-time crypto, but I was still working at AWS at the time in 2017. And I remember there's an AWS, like, you know how when you work at a big company like Amazon, you have like a few hundred people that are like crypto interested. And 2017 was a crazy time, because I remember watching my Bitcoin go from like the few Bitcoin I had go from like, I don't know, $1,000 up to $20,000. And I think my sister-in-law had even bought a few Bitcoin, just because I told her in 2016, like, hey, you should buy a few, but like maybe it might go up. And then when it hit 20,000 in December, I was like, oh my God, maybe I should sell some, because I've been holding it for so long. But then I think my Coinbase account only had a $10,000 daily deposit limit, and I was like, I couldn't even do it if I wanted to. And it was such a crazy time, you couldn't even get support. I remember at Coinbase. But my experience with DeFi Summer was basically different, because I just basically hodled my Bitcoin. But I realized that I was like 2017, I was like, I went to 20,000 and I went back down to whatever. But I've been through a few. I knew it was going to go even higher next time. And so when 2020 rolled around, and all of a sudden we were locked down during COVID, it was a really interesting time, because I mean, I remember we'd just gotten sorry, I don't want to go into too much detail, but we'd just gotten locked down in March 2020. And all of a sudden, like, I think in May or June, Compound V2 launched. And we had been working, I don't know if you guys remember that hackathon in fall 2019 before COVID lockdown, where Robert Leshner and the whole Compound team came into Coinbase HQ on California Street, or California, whatever, the new HQ that we were only there for a few months. And we were hacking. It was the DeFi for the World hackathon. It was the one put on by the Zora founder, actually, Jacob. So the Zora founder was still at Coinbase back then. He put on a hackathon called DeFi for the World in 2019. It was way too early. DeFi was not ready for the world yet. But we met Robert and the whole team. We built the first Compound price feed, and my team, which was like not just me, but Robert Leshner's entire Compound team, like half a dozen engineers and product designers, and like some really respectful people that were Flashbots contributors after they left Coinbase, and others. We built the first open price feed for Compound, and that gave me the DeFi bug. And then when Compound V2 launched, all of a sudden I was like, wait, I can deposit my wrapped Bitcoin. I figured out how to wrap my Bitcoin and bring it to Ethereum. And I was like, wait, I can deposit my wrapped Bitcoin and I can earn comp tokens. And I called Robert Leshner on the phone, the founder of Compound. I still admire him. He's at Superstate now. He's one of my, one of the OGs that I look up to, that I kind of inspired me to build Moonwell years later. And I called him on the phone. And I was like, hey, what is this, Robert? This is like mining, but I can earn comp by just depositing my Bitcoin. This reminds me of mining. It's like I don't even have to leave my computer on to mine. What is this? He's like, yeah, it's called farming. I'm like, what? What is farming? He's like, oh yeah, you're yield farming. I'm like, really? Yeah. He's like, harvest your crops, bro. And I was like, wait. I didn't even know the terminology. This is like June 2020. And all of a sudden, Robert Leshner and the whole team were like, yeah, it's farming, and it's like, you can harvest your crops, you can compound the gains. And I just went down that rabbit hole. I think we were all there during DeFi summer. I like within a week or so, there was a social, just to give people the context, you guys all remember this, but there were like social channels at Coinbase, Slack. There was probably a few thousand people working at Coinbase at the time, because the bull market was kicking back up. After the March crash of COVID, like all of a sudden the money printer turned on and everything was going, like Bitcoin was now back above 20K, I think. I don't remember exactly what it was worth. But I created there was a social financial plan channel. And that was like this really gigabrain guy talking about like, hey, you should buy this S&P 500 index fund or whatever. You remember that? I don't want to name his name, but because he prefers to remain anon. But I created the social DeFi plan channel because I was like, well, screw the social financial plan channel. They're making 10% on S&P 500 index funds. I'm making 1,000% on my crazy compound yield farming strategy with Uniswap and SushiSwap and food coins and Anyways, it was just a magical time. And that channel that I started with just a few people, I was like, hey, are you guys into DeFi? Are you trying this comp farming thing? By 2021, when DeFi summer really kicked off, the next year when like Avalanche and Forks and like all the craziness, Snowdog and all the crazy rugs happened, like that channel had grown to be 3,000 or 4,000 people. It was the second biggest channel next to the Coinbase channel, which was the general channel. Everyone in the company was getting alpha. So you guys probably remember that. I'll shut up now because that was a really magical experience. It was a crash course in finance for me, honestly.
Yeah, I remember that's how I pretty much started learning about DeFi. I had heard of it when I had joined Coinbase, but I'd known Jason Hobby from Compound, who was another designer, but I didn't really get my crash course until that channel that you set up, Luke. I remember that. Yeah, we can go way back, and there was a few programs, but that was my first introduction to DeFi, really, in terms of learning about it.
It was a legendary channel. That social DeFi
crazy.
plan.
There were so many millionaires made there, honestly, because we were sharing airdrop alpha. Like everyone was like, "Did you get a uni airdrop?" Yeah, I just got $800. Like I only used Uniswap once. How did I get $800? And people were just like, "Oh, free money." And then someone would be like, "Oh, I've been a market maker on Uniswap for years, and I somehow got $20,000." And we're like, "Holy shit!" Anyways, a magical time. But then just to kind of give you, there was a dark side to it. I think it got a little bit too overheated because by 2021. There were a lot of new employees coming, especially it was right before kind of everyone started to think that Coinbase was going to go public. I think the S1 was filed, right? Like, so people knew Coinbase was going to go public. And I didn't even realize this because I haven't been around startups. Like Coinbase was the first, big startup I worked at. And I didn't realize that a whole bunch of people descend on a startup about to go public, and they're more like mercenaries than missionaries. So all of a sudden there were new people that weren't like the people that joined in Crypto Winter in 2018 or 2019 that were like there for increasing economic freedom in the world. There was a whole cohort of people in San Francisco that were like, I just want to get my options and hopefully I'll become a millionaire. And some of those people came in and they're like, what Ponzi should I buy? And I'm just like, please don't buy any of them. They're all Ponzi. Like there were all these forks, right? And I was trying to tell people like, because people were like Wonderland Time. Do you remember that one? It was like this giant fork on Avalanche and like it rugged. And people would come in and they'd be like, yeah. And I had made a lot of money on that because I was early in and early out. But then people would come in like August 2021 and they'd be like, should I buy a time? And I'd be like, please don't, please do your own research. Like you're going to get rugged. It's a Ponzi. But people didn't listen to us, right? And like I was trying to be like, not financial advice, do your own research, but like you're coming in like 3 months after Wonderland Time has already made millionaires and you're like, should I put my life savings in this? And like I can just guarantee you, if you come in with that attitude, you're probably gonna get wrecked. I don't want to give you financial advice because I don't want to see people get hurt. But at the same time, like the people that are missionaries kind of understand crypto goes up and down. But the people that were mercenaries, they just saw everyone getting rich and they're like, oh, let me ape in 50K of my life savings. And I'm like, please don't. And so it was kind of crazy. That was the downside to it, right?
Yeah. Question on that actually, Luke. How do you kind of deal with that stress? Because a lot of people look to you of, how do I spend my money? How do I get X percent? And you've been in the space and building the space for a long time. So I'm sure you've gotten that question many times. How do you deal with that?
That's a really good question, because honestly, what I learned, because like 2017 was stressful. In fact, my poor sister-in-law, who bought like a few $1,000s worth of Bitcoin with money she could afford to lose, she freaked out so much. She was like, it went up, it went down. I just sold it at 10K, and it was too stressful, too much anxiety. I was like, you're fine. You should have held on to it probably. Just don't even look at it. But she did good. She bought it like $2,000 in 2016 and sold it at 10K in 2017. She actually did better than most people did who round tripped it all. Like me, I round tripped it from $100 all the way up to 20,000 and back down to 100 because I never even sold. So what I would say is, first of all, sorry, this is just what I've learned after a few cycles. Is first of all, if you invest in crypto or basically anything, I don't even want to give financial advice, but if you invest in stocks or crypto or bonds or whatever, any financial instrument, if you invest with the mindset of like, I hope I get a 2x or 10x or 100x in 3 months, you're probably going to lose money. But if you invest in something, and again, not financial advice, like I'm not telling you to do something or not do something. Please don't interpret my things like you should do your own research. I'm just saying this. But if you invest in crypto with a 3 to 4 year time horizon, and you're just like, I'm going to put money I can afford to lose. I wouldn't be sad if I lost this money. Like for some people, that's $100. For some people, that might be $1,000. Some people, it might be more. But don't put your life savings in. Don't put your college tuition money. Don't put your kids' college tuition money in. Just think of it like this is a speculative bet on the future of finance. And if you put 50% of your net worth in, you're probably going to be sad. But if you put 1% of your net worth in, you might be fine without it, assuming you can afford to lose 1% of everything you own. That might be only $100. And then don't look at it for 3 or 4 years. And I think the way I tell people to think about this, because it's hard to have this psychology when people have greed and fear, right? And when things are really crazy, I just think about regret minimization. So when things are really crazy, don't forget to take profits. Because think about it this way. If you sold just 10% of whatever you have, when people are like, it's up only and it's like new all-time highs and Bitcoin's pumping to whatever. If you sold just 10% of what you have, would you regret it? That you like maybe locked in some gains that are like going to pay for your tuition for college for the next few years? Like probably not. But if you didn't sell anything, and then we round trip it all back to zero, because it'll probably round trip all back to zero at some point. It's crypto, it's super volatile. Then you're going to have regrets. And so that's the psychology you need to have, is like, I look for signals like, hey, when people are like, crypto's dead, crypto's over, are you still working in crypto, bro? Like that was, by the way, that was 2023 for me, and also 2019 and also 2016, right? Like you go back every 4 years, it repeats with a halving cycle. That's when you want to be buying. And when people are like, it's up only, bro, like super cycle or whatever, that was 2021. That's when you want to be selling. And so I just try to be contrarian. When I start hearing things like crypto can never go down, that's a sell signal. That means like I better go take profit tomorrow. Like go sell 10% of whatever you have and just take profit. Not financial advice. But when someone is like, crypto's dead, and are you still working? Like I thought crypto was illegal now after FTX. Like that's a buy signal. And I'm not financial advice, but if you go, like there's a saying Warren Buffett had, is like buy when there's blood in the streets. That's what he said. And I believe in that. That's how you win. You don't buy when people are like FOMOing in the top. That's how you lose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good mindset to keep up. So I think we can get.
It's hard to do that though. Honestly, the psychology is hard. That's the hardest thing.
Psychology Money is a great book, and it talks about that. So before we go into the future, I want to actually hear from Sohail as well. It sounds like, Luke, you remember Robert in creating the DeFi channel. Sohail, how do you remember kind of DeFi earning forming in DeFi summer? I guess we didn't use DeFi earning. It was probably farming and different terminology entirely.
Yeah, the whole like DeFi summer 2020, I think it was June when Compound launched Comp, was everything was like farming and like food related. It was kind of funny. There was like you harvest your crops and you get yams, and like everything was like a vegetable, which looking back is kind of hilarious. Yeah, I think DeFi really for me was like the maker era of 2019, maybe 2018, 19 is kind of when I started getting interested in DeFi. I don't think we had Compound and I think had launched, but they didn't have the yield farming up until 2020. I remember when the first like real thing that hit was like when we started making the DAI savings rate, as like you could start earning yield on your DAI natively through the app. which matched, I think, the USDC earnings. I think that was 2019 or 2020. I don't remember exactly. There was also periods like 2017 where you started seeing glimmers of this, like there was CryptoKitties and like there was all these like weird financial applications that were starting like really immature, but they were starting to come around, and you're like, oh, you see it. And then there were people like Jacob Horn, who's now at Zora, who were like, oh, this is going to come. It's like, he was like talking about the future. The guy's a true visionary. I got to give him credit. And he saw it coming. And then when 2020 happened and we had that social DeFi channel and we were all earning yield. I remember specifically those in the summer, I was at a park with Jason Hoppy, who had just left to join Compound. He had left Coinbase. And he was like, yeah, the compound earnings have started. And he was just telling me about all the money. And I was like, whoa, like I knew it was happening, but I like hadn't put the effort into actually like getting involved. And I think that was when, you know, Yams, Compound, kind of the same thing Luke was saying, doing some LP on Uniswap. The first the Uniswap airdrop, that was like a seminal moment where like a ton of people just made a ton of money from this like free airdrop. And then like airdrop farming began. It was like fun. I have to say, for me, the 2018-19 crypto bear didn't feel like a bear market. I don't know why. I just was like, we round tripped, and I felt like because 2017 was so stressful, and like the very beginning of 2018 was so stressful, that when 2019 came and the market was down to 3K or whatever Bitcoin, I just felt like I could breathe for like just a few months. So I like kind of enjoyed 2019. It still felt like there's all these like crypto purists who are like very mission oriented, still at the company. And I definitely think after 2021 that Luke is saying definitely some mercenaries joined, but I think have since left Coinbase after the 2022 and 2023. So yeah, my journey at Coinbase was exciting, and I learned so much thanks to people like Luke and like the community there. Social DeFi Plan was awesome. Yeah, I'm like still stoked to be in the space. I still think we're doing exciting things. I'm not I unlike Luke, I just like buy, and you know, I like bought repetitive, like had a recurring buy on Coinbase and kind of just let it sit. Classics with the occasional money that I'm willing to lose on these speculative things, but it's turned out well, and it's been fun. It's been so great.
Joey, do you mind if I build on what Sohail said a little bit before you jump in? I want to hear your story too, but one of the things you said really resonated with me, Sohail, and that was like the people that joined in 2019. I joined in February 2019. Like, we were not there to get rich quick. We were there for the mission. And I had come from a tech job where I was paid pretty well. I was like, you know, I was the principal engineer in Amazon. Like, I already had good comp. You know, it wasn't like I was poor. But I came there because I was like, I'm an early Bitcoiner, and I kind of like the mission of increasing freedom in the world. And I would say that I actually, unlike a lot of, I know it might sound weird to some of you that are new to the space, I actually love building in a bear market. And the reason why is because you don't have any noise. There's no crypto tourists. The only people that are there are the missionaries, not the mercenaries. And the missionaries are fun to build with because they're not there to get rich. They're there to build cool shit, and they're there to increase economic freedom in the world. They're there to build the future of finance. And I love that because Brian used to have this saying of building the bear because he's been through so many cycles. He's been through more cycles than I have. Even he was like launching Coinbase when, at Y Combinator, like when I was still working in big tech, right? And I never really appreciated it. But then what I realized, the reason why that resonates with me so much now is that the teams that are going to be really successful are the ones that were building during 2019. That was why Coinbase was successful. They were building during 2019. We were building that stuff. And then I know 2017 it was hard to keep the exchange on, but 2021 they were doing pretty good, even though we had code runs every day.
Yeah.
But and we captured a lot of money, and that's the same thing that's making Coinbase successful now. Is like they were building in 2023. They didn't stop building and just shut down.
Yeah.
That's why Coinbase is crushing it now.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing in DeFi. Like, you guys probably noticed this because you've been around the block a few times. Is that there are projects like Moonwell and Nook that have been building during the bear of 2023. We were down bad. Like, a lot of my co-founders left. They were just like, I'm going to quit this crypto thing. Some people, I had co-founders from Coinbase. One of them was just like, I think crypto is dead. I'm going back to working in InfoSec. He was a good security engineer.
Yeah, that was my next question, Luke. Like looking to the future, like what, I'm glad I met Coinbase and what we've learned, but looking to the future and how you started Nook, or sorry, how you started Moonwell. And Momo, did you have a grand plan for Moonwell? Did you see other apps being built on top of it when you first started, or what was that like kind of in the early days to start building momentum?
It's a great question because honestly, like when I left Coinbase, first of all, the thing I wanted to build at Coinbase right before I left was kind of like what Jesse wanted to build, but I couldn't convince Coinbase to let me do it. To his credit, Jesse actually helped convince the leadership that we should build on-chain products, which Coinbase was not in 2021 or 2022 when I left. That was not obvious that we should even build on-chain products. I couldn't convince them. I wanted to build a liquid staking token or liquid staking DAO similar to Lido, but for institutional clients, because I knew our institutional clients couldn't really custody staked ETH. And I was big in staking. I launched staking there. But for a lot of good reasons, Coinbase shouldn't launch a DAO. Coinbase shouldn't launch a token. I don't think the lawyers would let them. That's why Base doesn't have a token, is my guess. But it was my experience that I wanted to build DeFi products, not CeFi products, and that's why I left to launch a lending protocol, because I realized, and here's my key insight. That crazy yam farming thing that we were talking about, like food coins and sushi swap and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really know how when DeFi summer started in early 2020, I was an engineer. I was a software engineer. I'm really good at that. I'm not really good at finance. I buy and hold stocks. I buy and hold crypto. I'm like your typical 401k investor. At least I was before 2020. But then I realized, like, hey, I can wrap my Bitcoin and I can borrow like stable coins against it and farm at 100% in a stable swap pool. It was that crazy. Or I could farm yams and make 4,000% or whatever. I don't even remember how high it was. And that was sort of a crash course in finance, because I was like, wait a minute, that's called margin.
Yeah.
When you can borrow against the Bitcoin you mined like 10 years ago, and it wasn't very much back then, it was a few dollars, but maybe it's a few $1,000s now. And then I can borrow a stable coin and I can earn 100% APR. Now, I'm not saying you should earn 100% APR right now. You better look at that, because this was DeFi summer and the rates were crazy because it was so new, and like the yams were insane and they rugged in like a week. But like I was perpetually online. It was COVID lockdown. What else were we going to do? We're like online 24/7, sitting in our houses, which I'm not today, right? Like I'm too busy building Moonwell. But at that time, it was a crash course in margin and lending and why money markets are the most powerful primitives in DeFi. And now I've learned why they are. That's why I love Moonwell. That's why I love Nook. And also how to borrow against what you have, and also how to become a market maker on dexes. And that's another key component we could talk about, is like being able to borrow stable coins against your Ethereum or Bitcoin, and then go be in a stable swap pool where you're not taking impermanent loss risk.
Yeah.
And you can make double-digit APRs. That is a powerful primitive, because I was also being paid to lend my Bitcoin or paid to lend my Ethereum. And then I realized you stack those things on top of each other. And now all of a sudden, like, you're learning how market making works. You're learning how margin works. You're learning how the titans of finance, the Goldman Sachs of the world, Vampire's Grid, you're learning how they make money.
Right.
But you're doing it on chain, and it's accessible to anyone, whether you have $1 or whether you have $1 million, right? Yeah. That's what's powerful about DeFi.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful, and it took through the DeFi channel that we talked about earlier, and small investments here and there. It took a little bit of time to understand it, because I was not just learning crypto; I was learning essentially the essence of finance as well too. Because I was designing for major companies like Uber, but I wasn't a finance guy. So I think we've all been on a similar journey. I guess in that journey, what do you think were the big milestones, or like we've come a long way from farming yams and just using this phrase farming and this food terminology. Like, what do you think were the big milestones that got Moonwell? And I want to talk about Momo today as well, in terms of like, how has it gotten to where it is today? What were the big unlocks, the big changes that got us here?
Really good question. So I want to be transparent with the audience. When we launched Moonwell back in early 22, I thought Polkadot would be a big ecosystem because it had a $30 billion market cap, but there were no lending protocols on Polkadot. No significant. There might have been a tiny one, but what the idea we had is we met the Moonbeam team, really well funded team. They were funded by Arrington Capital, the Arrington XRP Capital, basically the first backer of the entire team at Ripple, like over a decade ago. Mike Arrington, he's one of our lead investors as well, and he was the founder of TechCrunch. He's like a super OG in the space, early Bitcoiner, but early OG in the Web 1 space even, right? Ton of respect for Michael Arrington. He's been invested in our company since in Moonwell, or the project, I guess I should say, for over 3.5 years, and he's still invested, and he hasn't sold any tokens. It's incredible to see the long-term support that he has. He's also been invested in Ripple for like over a decade, and Brad Garlinghouse, like he probably has more Ripple than any other fund. So anyway, what I learned about is that you have to pivot sometimes, because Polkadot, our thesis was Polkadot was a $30 billion collateral asset, and $30 billion was a lot of money back in 2021. That was like, Ethereum wasn't even, Ethereum DeFi was probably about the same amount. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't the 100+ billion of DeFi that Ethereum has today. It was like maybe half that or less. And so our thesis was that, hey, people want to borrow against their DOT. DOT was trading at $30, like just to put things in context. I don't know what it's trading at today. I don't look at it that much. But then the most devastating thing happened of all is that the only bridge to Ethereum, like we launched on June 22nd, 2022, quickly grew to 250 million TVL, because again, it was, even though Terra Luna had collapsed and some of the CeFi lenders had collapsed, it was still kind of like bull market vibes. FTX had not yet collapsed. That would come a few months later.
Yeah.
And then like 5 weeks after that happened, the Nomad bridge got hacked. And our users were devastated by that, because like 80% of the TVL on the bridge was just basically people bridging ETH and USD coin to Moonwell. And we were just like, it was like 5 weeks after our Bane protocol launched, and we were just in crisis mode, and we had to pause all markets within 20 minutes. And like, it was devastating. And then the entire Polkadot ecosystem never really recovered after that, because, and there's a lot of reasons, I don't want to go into it. I still love the Polkadot guys. I hope they succeed. I love the Moonview guys. We still have our app on their chain. But what really led to our success was the ability to pivot. And I didn't learn about this until February 2023, right after the FTX had collapsed, right when all my co-founders were thinking of leaving crypto, because like our, project was circling the drain. We, our token was trading at probably like down 99% from whenever we raised funds a year prior. And like literally 4 out of 5 of us, we had 5 co-founders, 4 out of 5 of us left the project. I was the last founder standing. And I was like, and I had like one employee working at Lunar Labs, the lab code that builds Moonwell. And I remember telling this one employee, I don't want to name names, but I said, hey, listen, we still have like $20 million of runway. It was always my vision to build Moonwell. I'm not going to stop just because, and you guys know that from working with me at Coinbase. I never quit. I came there to launch staking, and it's hard to launch staking or a new product at Coinbase, but I didn't give up until I did.
Yeah.
It took me like 3 years to do it. And I was like, I'm not just going to give up 1 year into this game. And like Jesse told me about Base. And I was like, we're going to pivot to Base. And like, we have $20 million. We can hire new devs. We hired some of the best devs in the world. In fact, better than some of my co-founders even, which were some of the best devs at Coinbase. And I was just like, I didn't take $25 million of investors' money on the Moonwell Foundation project to just give up after a year because FTX collapsed. Like, no one can predict that that's going to happen. But I had even told my co-founders, like, hey, something's probably going to break. People are buying monkey JPEGs for $100 million. Like, this is not sustainable. There are clear topping signals here. I was like, you guys have to be comfortable building during the bear. And when we build during the bear, we're going to come out the other side with a product that is really amazing and incredible. And that's what we kind of did, because I hired new devs. Even though my original co-founders heard me, they thought they were going to get rich in 6 months because it was Luke. Nothing of value is built in a day. And so the new devs I hired, the team that is kind of all the contributors behind Moonwell, and there's like probably close to 50 of us if you count full-time, part-time, US, non-US, Brazil. A lot of our devs are in Brazil. Multiple companies, like service providers, like risk managers, auditors. Like there's an army of people. And it's not just my team, right? But those teams that build during the bear, we built some really cool tech. Even after we launched on Base, we built, for example, you guys know all about this. I'm just for other people on the call. Like we built, on ramps where you can just send US dollars to a virtual checking account, and you can get stablecoins in your wallet in minutes. We built off ramps with a Visa debit card. We built the only protocol that I think is able to capture value and like accrue it back to the safety module stakers. We built Oracle extracted value. We built all this cool tech during the bear. And the reason why we're starting to see some signs of life coming into, the first stablecoin bill, and we can talk more about like how that's going to change things. I'd love to hear your perspective on it. Is because we were building during the bear. Now there's going to be a whole bunch of projects in the next few months that are like, hey, we're starting off right now, and we're going to build the everything app for crypto or the everything app for stablecoins or whatever. Like, ignore the noise. If they weren't building in 2023, how are they going to build what we've been building over the last 4 years almost, right? And you guys too, you've been building during the bear at Coinbase. You've been building Next Savings for probably over a year now. People just don't know it's because you just launched, right? So I'd love to hear your perspective on that too.
Yeah, I think if you can only focus and work when things are good, then you're not going to make a lot of progress. And I mean, the first few months, we had to figure out just basic questions of, can an app like this even get in the App Store? What does the fiat to USDC payment rail look like? There's so many of those core questions that people just assume work magically in the background, but it's actually very hard to do these things. Rules, regulations, security audits. It's a ton of work, and 6 months might sound like an eternity in crypto, but if you're building a really hard project like a Moonwell or a Momo or a Nook, it does take time. And so I'm glad we invested in that, and we just kept building, right? Like prices fluctuated, DeFi earning rates were relatively low at the beginning of the year, and we just kind of kept building, and then we started to gain some momentum, right? ETH picked back up, the rates picked back up, super chain starting to form, and then the Genius Act passed. So that brought a lot of clarity. And I think these tailwinds help provide a clear story, and I can share a little bit more about an exciting announcement that we have. But these tailwinds like come together and just basically build trust and momentum. But if you didn't have those pieces in place when momentum was good or the times were good, you probably would have never gotten started in the first place. We would have quit a few months ago. So I guess to bring it kind of to Moonwell and Momo and Nook is, Luke, where do you see all of this going? I think you've had several apps built on top of the Moonwell protocol. You have Momo as well. What do you think are the big challenges to bring this to everyone, DeFi earning and borrow, and make it go mainstream? Because you've been at this problem for a long time, and you're one of the experts in the field.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined like a dozen plus, including some of the best apps in the App Store, like Nook Savings, built on top of Moonwell. But I think it's a testament to not only the primitives we chose, because you have to be really thoughtful about the choices, like things like Morpho Vaults and things like the core markets, which are based on, the 6+ year-old battle hardened compound V2 code with improvements. And I think you have to kind of choose the right primitives, and you have to make sure that everything we do is like self-custodial, and that the Moonwell protocol never takes custody or control of user funds. And that is not only really important from a compliance standpoint and a security standpoint, but it's also important because I kind of was very thoughtful, and I think you guys are too, having that perspective of building at Coinbase, because one of the things that a lot of engineers don't understand if you work in Web 2, I mean, I had decades of Web 2 experience. When you get to Coinbase, all of a sudden security really matters. And in the Web 2 space, the Web 1 space, there's a lot of security theater where it's kind of like, well, who cares if we have a data breach? Like our customers got their PII leaked and like we lost, 50 million customer records. Like we'll just pay them $100 and it'll be fine. But in the when you go to Coinbase, all of a sudden you have like these former like CIA and NSA people working there and former military, and they're just like, hey, if we get hacked, like North Korea gets billions of dollars of crypto, and then they go build nukes and like start nuking us. Like it's actually nation state level actors. And then I didn't even understand why. Like I was like, wait, I can't just put the hotkey on a node and go run staking dollars. They're like, well, that would be cute for a few $1 million, but like people want to stake $100 billion. I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you're right. North Korea would want that money. And then you understand because you worked in security and InfoSec, and we're all like masters of craft in Web 2. And then when I left Coinbase, that gave me the insight to like, if I can build these systems such that they would be capable of Coinbase maybe someday putting a few $1 billion in there, not today, but like maybe someday in the future, then they'll be safe for anyone to integrate on top of, including Nook Savings, including the Momo agent, and we can talk more about that, including all the things. Because the way I really think about this, and this is kind of hard for some people to grasp, because a lot of people in the space are just like, hey, we're tiny, we have 50K market cap, just build it and put the hotkey on your like server in Petsner or whatever, it'll be fine. We'll figure that out like when we get to a few $1 million.
Right.
But the problem is that's how you get hacked. Like the only way to build something that can safely store $1 million is to build something that can safely store $1 trillion. And I know that's kind of lost on people, but like, that's what you've been building at Coinbase for the last almost decade, you guys. And that's what we've been building at Moonwell and at Coinbase for the last, 7+ years. And my team, like the reason why we can actually build these systems that could hopefully someday, when Coinbase figures out how to do the on-chain stuff in size, hold the trillions of dollars of stablecoins that the Genius Act is going to bring on chain, is by building systems that are capable of just holding a few $100 million now and not losing funds. And that is something that very few teams are capable of doing. And I applaud you guys for your efforts in that space. I think we have a perspective that is really needed for the banks to adopt. And I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think Kenzen and Sohail have been very good about, it's almost second nature to them about building with security in mind and scale in mind. And I think to another extent too, and we've been able to do that because we're built on top of Base and Moonwell. We don't have to. We're not building from the ground up, right? We've crossed $50 million in transactions, and if we were to start our own protocol and start from scratch, like that would take so long. So we're building on top of your platform, which is great. And then I think something that we learned at Coinbase too is we design for everyone, right? Whether it's $5 or $5 million, it should feel safe. It should feel easy. It should feel clear. Because, right, I mean, your guidance around 1% is great guidance, but 1% means something else to everyone. And we have customers that write in and say, hey, I've deposited $500 and I want to know how it's earning and what I can expect next and learn more about DeFi and Nook. And that's very real. That's a lot of money. We also have people who write in with $500,000 and they're asking some similar questions. But we want the experience to be safe, secure, and easy for everyone. And we've gotten a lot of also questions around pivoting too, of like, oh, would you want to just focus on high net worth individuals or just focus on these specific regions and ignore smaller amounts. But I think the Coinbase way is safe, secure, and easy for everyone. And we're applying that to Nook through Moonwell, and we want to keep doing that. We're not just trying to cater to a very specific rich person or a very specific target demo. We're building it for everyone, which is great. To that note, though, how has your pivot been? I don't know, not pivot, but how has your switch to Momo been? I know you're more of a backend engineer. You've built a lot with the protocol. How has it been building a consumer bot and working on the consumer side like that?
Well, first, I want to just clarify for people, because I think by creating the Momo agent so fast, we've created confusion in our own community, in the Moonwell community that's been around for almost 4 years now. And I want to just make sure it's very clear, this is not a pivot, just to be 100% clear. And, I don't want to refer to it as that, because we're still building Moonwell, and Moonwell is the foundation that all of our products are built on, whether Momo or Nook Savings. Like, Moonwell will continue to grow, and we feel like it's the best mechanism design in all of, lending and borrowing, right? We've built some really cool innovations. We're going to continue innovating on that side. And in fact, I'm already working on the Moonwell V2 card, which will actually have for the first time, maybe I can drop some alpha, we'll have the ability to get cash back, not just in like stable coins, but in whatever token you choose. And so that is pretty exciting for us to launch that in the next few months. But I just wanted people to be clear what Momo is, because I think it's very similar to Nook Savings, but it's a different type of experience. And I think both have their place. And I don't think they even compete with each other, because they're all built on top of a solid foundation, which is Moonwell and Morpho Vaults, right? And so Momo was inspired by a simple use case that I heard from a founder of a company called LiquidStar. His name's Scott. And really quickly, what LiquidStar does is they're a network state company. They drop shipping containers into underdeveloped countries, like places like Jamaica, Djibouti, Indonesia. And these shipping containers have solar panels, batteries, water filtration systems, Starlink internet, and GPUs, so that you can mine Bitcoin or you can do AI inference workloads. And what that provides to a village with no internet, no clean water, and no electricity is that all of a sudden, the people in the village now have clean water, and they now have internet, satellite internet, fast internet. And they also have, the ability to charge batteries that will let them power electric scooters. And they can take the batteries home and have lights in their house. And so this provides these local villages with like the underdeveloped villages, which are typically subsistence farmers in sub-Saharan Africa. Like there's 3 of them in Djibouti right now, with services they never had before, the opportunity to work remote jobs, which is fantastic. And they want to train these local villagers on how to maintain the equipment, how to clean the solar panels, how to make sure that the AI inference workloads are running, because, for example, they get local open source models, so they can actually have AI capabilities, like teaching them how to learn, like, history, math, science, all the things that you can't really learn in a remote village. So these high school kids are being trained and taking quizzes on how to maintain solar equipment, how to maintain water filtration systems, how to maintain internet. Like, they're learning very valuable skills that would get them a job in a Western country or anywhere in the world. And the problem they have is that they don't have smartphones, so they can't use our app. So the simple ask from Scott, the founder of LiquidStar, was like, he wanted to give these high school kids Moonwell cards and allow them to earn, $5, $10, $20, just small amounts of money, but big amounts of money for them, and be able to load their card with a voice chat or an agentic chat from their Nokia phones, basically. They're, if you've ever seen those old Nokia phones, the candy
Yeah.
bar phones or whatever, that's what they have in a lot of these villages. They don't have smartphones. They can't even use our apps typically.
Right.
And so I thought, and that's when we came to the Coinbase AI hackathon in February 1st. My team and I were like, let's do this. Does anyone want to go to the hackathon first? I asked my team and all the contributors because like they don't, it was sort of an optional thing. I was like, I don't know if you guys want to do this. It's on a weekend. I was like, do you want to go to this hackathon? Worst case scenario, we learn some new AI skills. Best case scenario, we like win the hackathon and maybe people think this is a cool use case. Is like now we have a voice interface into Moonwell where you can say like load $20 onto my Moonwell card or like put $10 in the vault. And then that solves the use case. We had an idea of using Twilio, which hasn't been developed yet, but using Twilio, which is a SMS. It's like a lot of call centers use it to provide like automated support or to provide like agentic voice chat. And to his credit, like Liquid Star is actually building this out, and they actually have a combination of Telegram and WhatsApp. It's different than Momo, but I got the idea from Scott, and I think it's fantastic. Just think of it as a voice interface into Moonwell, where for people that don't want to use apps or can't use apps.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the inspiration. And then it turned out to sweep the hackathon, and then we heard such demand of like, hey, I want to automate my yield farming. Like, let's just build that into an app or a product. And we did that over the last 6 months. But Nook Savings is very similar. And I'd love for you, I don't want to talk all about Momo, but just think of Momo as another interface into Moonwell, because Momo brings TVL and users and growth to Moonwell, both the USD coin and Bitcoin markets. And we can talk more about what else it does, but I want to hear Nook Savings is a different approach, which is like designed for app in the App Store for savings. I feel like it's serving a different niche, which is maybe people that have access to a smartphone but don't know how to use DeFi.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think if I look at the landscape, I mean, there's so many different people who want to access Moonwell and these platforms and higher savings, but easy means something easy means something different to everyone else. And so while chatbots and Momo is a good form factor for those in developing nations and those without smartphones, we've actually tapped into people here in the US who have smartphones, but they might be completely new to crypto. And so they might be a bit older, like they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they maybe used Coinbase before, but even an experience like Coinbase can be quite hectic, right? There's a lot of apps in there. There's a lot of assets in there, and there's a lot of trade happening. There's a lot of fluctuation. And so they're just looking for repeatable earnings from Moonwell and other protocols. And this is a great way to get them in. And when I think about the landscape, there's plenty of different form factors like Momo, like Nook, to kind of serve customers. I mean, there's 300 plus different banking apps in the App Store alone right now, currently serving customers with 0.25 or 0.5% APY. So I think there's definitely a lot more apps needed that serve 8, 9, 10% APY to our customers through different forms. And so we're just kind of building and finding our way in terms of who finds this easy, who's attracted to this form factor. It's definitely not one app or one form factor to rule them all.
Luke, can I ask you a question? I actually have a two-part question, but maybe you can start with the first
Sure.
one. I'm curious, Luke, what you think the bills, so the Clarity, the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, specifically maybe starting off with the Genius Act, how you think that will affect Moonwell and Momo, and how you see in the short, medium, long term these things playing out. How do you envision this? I have some ideas for Nook specifically, but I'm very curious to hear what your take is.
Another good question. So first of all, just to put things in context, there's about 115 billion, at least last time I checked a couple weeks ago, 115 billion of TVL on Ethereum mainnet. Ethereum mainnet was, where DeFi summer started, and most of the TVL still is on Ethereum mainnet. By contrast, there's maybe, 10 billion of TVL on Base. I'm just guessing. I don't know the exact number. And so a lot of times I've been asked over the years, like, why aren't you on mainnet? Moonwell's a multi-chain protocol. We could clearly launch Moonwell on mainnet. And what I tell them is that Coinbase takes a few years to figure things out, but they come in size and scale. And the Genius Act just confirmed that that's going to happen. It made it inevitable. And the reason why is this. And I also tell them that if we were to deploy on Ethereum mainnet, that would be a side quest toward the bigger $1 trillion prize, which is what Coinbase and Circle are going to build on Base. And I firmly believe this, but the Genius Act just basically made it inevitable. And the reason why is this. Scott Bessent, the US Treasury Secretary, I'm going to kind of mess up the quote, but he basically said there's about 250 billion market cap combined today of stablecoins, mostly Tether and Circle USD coin. And Tether is serving a different use case than it's mostly for people outside the US, people in Europe, and people in Asia that want to trade on Binance and OKX. But Circle and USD coin and Coinbase have the only Genius Act compliant stablecoins today. And Tether will be fine. They'll reshore from Eurodollar banks to US financial institutions. They make enough money to make that possible. But that means that what the Treasury Secretary said is that you have $250 billion today, and over the next 5 years, 3 to 5 years, it'll grow to $2 trillion in stablecoin market cap. And if Circle has the only two Genius Act compliant and MiCA compliant, MiCA is the regulation in Europe that's very similar. Stablecoins, those are USD coin and Euro coin. And maybe Tether is going to reshore and be compliant in a couple of years. That means that Coinbase and Circle are going to capture the lion's share of that $2 trillion of stablecoin liquidity, and that's coming to Base. And you might ask, why wouldn't it come to Ethereum mainnet? Well, there's a number of reasons for it. What's the difference between Ethereum mainnet and Base? Ethereum mainnet is more decentralized, let's admit it. But also decentralization comes with downsides. For example, a few months ago, Lazarus Group, North Korea, stole $1.5 billion of Ethereum from Bybit, one of the biggest exchanges in Dubai. You guys can read about this because it was one of the biggest hacks of all time. Now, the interesting thing about that is none of the Ethereum validators wanted to roll back that transaction. And I think for good reasons. I mean, Ethereum is decentralized, and the DAO hack happened almost a decade ago. And that was probably the last time we could ever hard fork Ethereum, right? No one is going to hard fork Ethereum for $1.5 billion, even though Lazarus Group is probably going to point nukes at us, all of us, right? And so it's a very bad outcome. And the banks, for the traditional finance players in the space, I used to work in banking. You guys probably don't know this, but like before I worked at Amazon, I was on the East Coast and I worked for a lot of big banks and hedge funds. If you tell JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, or Bank of America, the people that are going to build stablecoins now that they're legal, if you tell them like, sorry, you guys just lost $1.5 billion to North Korea, you can't roll it back. That is an impossible thing for you to tell them. You're never going to get them to deploy on Ethereum. But where you will get them to deploy is on Base or a layer 2 that they can roll back because, and just think about it this way. Here's an analogy. I love this analogy. I'm using some of the analogies that Austin Campbell used last week on Lorshin. Let's say we tokenize grandma's mortgage on Ethereum. North Korea steals that tokenized mortgage. There cannot be a world in which the answer is like, I'm sorry, I guess North Korea gets to move into grandma's house in the United States. Like there are people in the US government that have very strong opinions about that. And the banks that hold those mortgages or might want to tokenize them have very strong opinions about that.
Yeah.
So what is Base and why will all the liquidity come to Base? My thesis is this, is that Coinbase is going to become a bank. They've already filed for a banking charter in the next few years. I don't know when, but it's pretty much inevitable. And think about Base being Coinbase's internal ledger. It is just a banking ledger like Bank of America or Chase has. The only difference is anyone in the world can read and write to it with an Ethereum private wallet. And that is a very powerful thing. That is why all of us are building on Base, because I can write to it with $1 or I can write to it with $1 million. But Bank of America does not let me write to their internal ledger with my Ethereum wallet, and Coinbase does. And also, Coinbase can bring the trillions of dollars of TradFi institutional stablecoin liquidity to Base, because if North Korea steals, $100 billion of Jamie Dimon's money, like, first of all, screw Jamie Dimon, but whatever, we have to operate in his space now. That's what's going to bring trillions of dollars. There cannot be a world in which it's just like, oh, well, I guess DPRK now has $100 billion of US fiat. Like that just doesn't exist. So in order to get to trillions, which I think is where we need to go, I mean, the Genius Act and I haven't even talked about clarity, but let's talk about that later. We need to assure the traditional financial players of the space, the Jamie Dimons of the world, the Banks of America of the world, that we can operate in a space that is maybe a little more centralized, but still gives some aspect of openness to the people that anyone can read and write to with an Ethereum wallet. That's what I'm building. I kind of believe in this sort of hybrid model. And I know that's a bit of an outlier, but we can talk more about that. Like, I feel like centralization has its benefits because the real world needs to be centralized. There needs to be protection. There needs to be, grandma can't lose her mortgage to North Korea, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a series of forces coming together in terms of we're finding this balance. And Luke, what I like about you building is you understand the technology, but you're also pragmatic. You understand, yes, that grandma's house cannot be lost to North Korea, but you understand the security implications of truly being decentralized and not having JP Morgan, Bank of America, et cetera, control everything, and therefore control kind of the flow of funds and especially the costs. And something that we've done here at Nook and on Moonwell and Momo is we've driven down the cost of money movement a lot to the point where it's practically free over Base. I think we pay a few pennies in terms of transaction fees, but it's all happening at once, and it's all just better for the end consumer, which is the main goal, I think, across Momo, Nook, and Moonwell. I want to give 2 shout outs. Well, one, thank you very much, Luke, so much for making the time. I want to give 2 shout outs of one, what we're building next for Nook. Kenzen or Sohail, do you want to share the announcement of what's coming after the iOS app?
Yeah, this is Kenzen here. So we're excited to announce that we're going to be launching the Android app pretty soon. We're actively working on that right now, kind of tying up the last couple pieces of it, and we'll be launching it in the pretty near future. I would say a couple weeks from now.
Yep. Awesome. If you want to join our closed beta, please reach out to us. You can DM us or find us on Telegram. We'll get you the beta early on over the next few weeks. And then for everyone joining this call, if you're a user of Nook on iOS in the US, unfortunately, we're limited to the US right now as we continue to roll out. I'm excited to share that, one, we are going to be rolling out in other countries soon. That list will be shared soon, but we're trying to reach everyone as quickly as possible, but it does take time to be compliant. And 2, for everyone on this call, if you enter the code BOOST, BOOST, into the Nook app, you'll get a 10-day, 10% boost for earning with Nook. So thanks all for making time on this call, and excited for you to
enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. By the way, congrats on Android coming. Do you mind if I also drop a little alpha on what's coming next for Momo too?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Before everyone leaves, I wanted to just drop a couple quick things. First of all, there's a use case that I'm actually really excited about that I didn't even really think about, but has really kind of made my life a lot easier. I don't know, for those of you that know me, because I was an early Bitcoiner, I still have a few Bitcoin. And I used to have to drive to like a secure data center across town just to pull my hardware wallets out and sign compounding things once a week. But I moved all that to Momo, and now I can compound from cold storage, which is great. I don't have to drive across town and into a secure data center just to pull my ledger out of a safe and sign. And so that's a use case that, maybe is not like, it, of course, just like Nook, anyone can use $1 or $10 or $100 or $100,000, but for early DeFi whales like me, it's a game changer that now I can kind of stake from cold storage or yield farm from cold storage, and not have to worry about compounding. I went on a trip to ETH New York last week, and my Momo account was still printing money and earning and compounding for me. And I feel like it's really compelling to just put your DeFi on autopilot. The other feature that this is sort of a use case that is sort of emergent that I didn't even realize, because we created Momo for these, basically for everyone. But then I didn't realize that early DeFi people like me would also benefit from not having to do those weekly or monthly or yearly compounding operations. Or in the case of DeFi Summer, we were doing it hourly, but we were too online. That's not a fun place to be in, although it's fun earning money. The other use case or the other feature coming alpha that I'm going to drop is that we realized that right now the Telegram onboarding experience isn't great, because a lot of normies, and to be clear, Momo is designed for normies to be able to use, just like Nook is, but it's a different type of experience. A lot of normies might not have Telegram. And so what's coming into the Momo dashboard in just the next few weeks will be full chat interface directly inside the app with push notifications. So you'll be able to, we won't be in the App Store yet. We're not sophisticated as Nook Savings is in that regard, but you'll be able to add Momo to your home screen. And then Momo will be able to send you push notifications as a progressive web app. And so you'll be able to chat with her right in the app. You won't even have to have Telegram as an.
That's awesome. That's incredible. 1 on the cold storage, but 2 on the app part. I think a native chat is so cool. That's cool to hear. Look, I'm very excited about that.
Cool. So inspiring about Momo, and in the same way that Nook Savings is expressed. Can you still hear me? I just got a call while I was saying that, but
you broke up a bit. You want to say it again?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the thing that's really inspiring to me personally, I think you guys have the same kind of stories from your user community that you could share in the future. Is I heard from someone on the virtuals team, I don't want to name names, but she told me that like she just onboarded 2 of her normie friends to Momo, and they were the kind of people that found yield farming intimidating, and they were just incredibly excited about the fact they could just put USD coin into it and they didn't have to think about yield farming. And I feel like you guys are building the same thing, so it's really inspirational. And I just want to say, I think even though we're we're a progressive web app, we're an agent. You're an easy to use iOS app in Google Play Store app pretty soon. And I feel like we're both building the same thing, but it's all built on a solid foundation. And I think you have plenty of stories. I'd love to hear you guys share those in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're excited to share more. But first, we want to give you a shout out and hear from you and build on top of that, because Luke, you've been instrumental in terms of helping Nook get started, building on top of Moonwell, and improving it yourself with building Momo as well. You built a solid foundation between Moonwell and Momo, and we appreciate all of your support. So thank you so much. And to everyone who listened, thanks for making time. Please reach out to us if you have any questions about the 10% NPY boost, the Android rollout, and the big updates from Momo in terms of the cold storage, and then the integrated chatbot. That all sounds incredible. Excited to share more soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And also just a quick note to people, check my X feed if you're curious about the safety module incident. We have an update there. Don't worry, funds are safe. You're going to get all the rewards you were entitled to. Please vote on the remediation plan. I think we'll have more to share about how our security practices saved us from losing any customer funds. Just wanted to let anyone listening that hasn't heard about that yet, just check my X feed. I think it's the top of my feed, and or the second thing in the feed besides this space. Just want to let you know, come to our governance forums, come to the proposal and vote, because the team has been hard at work over the last almost week just to make sure we can make everyone whole. And our good news is funds are safe. No need to unstake. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks for the
Awesome. Big things happening, guys. Moonwell, Mamo, and Nook making things happen in the DeFi space, yield and farming. Absolutely love it, guys. One of my favorite DeFi plays, obviously, Moonwell, Mamo, right up there too. Great project. Guys, if you want to get involved once again with these fantastic DeFi plays and so much more, get over to the Patreon today. The link is down below. If you're interested in swing trades, you want to join the swing trade tier over there as well. I actually just put a educational video over there today as well, training people on some tools if you want to learn how to do swing trading on your own, and so much more, guys. So check that out. We're live every single day. Join me and thousands of other members today for less than the price of a cup of coffee a day, my friends. All right, so check that out. Link is down below. Once again, click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.